The silver Honda Civic had been parked in the same spot for 3 days. A ranger at Tuolumne Meadows noticed it first on the morning of July 19, 2018. The vehicle sat at the eastern edge of the parking area, near the trailhead for the Glen Aulin Loop. Nothing about it seemed unusual: California plates, a parking permit displayed on the dashboard, no visible damage. The ranger noted the location and moved on. By July 21, the car had not moved. Rangers in Yosemite National Park are trained to watch for vehicles that remain stationary too long. In a park that spans nearly 1,200 square miles of wilderness, an abandoned car often means a hiker in trouble. Ranger David Kowalski ran the plates that afternoon. The vehicle was registered to Andrew Michael Wessel, age 29, of San Jose, California. A routine check with the park's permit office confirmed that Wessel had filed a wilderness permit for a 2-day trip beginning July 16th. His planned route followed the Glen Aulin Trail to the waterfall, with an overnight stay at the designated backcountry campsite. He was expected to return to his vehicle by the evening of July 17th. He was now 4 days overdue. Kowalski approached the Honda and looked through the windows. A black backpack sat on the rear seat, partially unzipped. He could see a water bottle, a rolled-up sleeping pad, and what appeared to be a bag of trail mix. On the front passenger seat lay a smartphone and a brown leather wallet. The ranger tried the doors. Locked. He radioed the information to the park's search and rescue coordinator. Within 2 hours, a team had assembled at the Tuolumne Meadows Ranger Station. The decision was made to open the vehicle. Inside, they found Andrew Wessel's California driver's license, 2 credit cards, $87 in cash, and a Chopo AA membership card. His iPhone, powered off, showed a dead battery. A charging cable was coiled in the center console. The backpack contained a sleeping bag, a compact camping stove, 2 freeze-dried meals, a headlamp, and a first aid kit still sealed in its packaging. What the car did not contain was any sign of Andrew Wessel himself. The inventory raised immediate questions. If Wessel had packed for an overnight trip, why had he left half his gear in the car? The sleeping bag and stove were essential for a backcountry stay. The freeze-dried meals suggested he had planned to cook at camp, yet he had apparently set off with only part of his equipment. More troubling was the phone. Experienced hikers sometimes leave their devices behind to disconnect from technology. But Wessel's permit application listed an emergency contact number, his mother in Fremont, California. The phone was his only means of reaching her. Ranger Kowalski interviewed staff at the Tuolumne Meadows store and grill. A cashier recalled a man matching Wessel's description purchasing a sandwich and a Gatorade on the afternoon of July 16th. She remembered him because he had asked about trail conditions near Glen Aulin. He seemed calm, she said, prepared. He had a map folded in his back pocket. No one reported seeing him after that. The search began at dawn on July 22nd. 12 rangers fanned out along the Glen Aulin Trail, checking the route Wessel had filed on his permit. The path descends from Tuolumne Meadows through a series of granite slopes and subalpine forest before reaching the Tuolumne River and the Glen Aulin waterfall. The round trip covers approximately 11 miles. For a fit hiker, it takes 6 to 8 hours. The team found nothing on the main trail. No abandoned gear, no signs of injury, no indication that anyone had left the established path. At the Glen Aulin campsite, rangers checked the logbook where overnight visitors are encouraged to sign in. Andrew Wessel's name was not there. On the second day of searching, a ranger named Maria Santos discovered a partial boot print on a use trail approximately 2 miles east of Glen Aulin. Use trails are unofficial paths created by repeated foot traffic hunters, fishermen, or hikers seeking routes not marked on standard maps. This particular trail led toward a series of unnamed lakes in the park's backcountry. The boot print matched the size and tread pattern of hiking boots sold at RII, a brand consistent with gear Wessel had purchased 3 months earlier, according to receipts found later in his apartment. But one print was not enough to confirm his direction. Santos followed the use trail for another mile. The terrain grew rougher, the forest thicker. The path eventually faded into unmarked wilderness. She found nothing else. By July 25th, the search had expanded to include 42 personnel, 3 helicopters, and 2 canine units. Crews covered the main trail network within a 5-mile radius of the Glen Aulin trailhead. They checked ravines, creek beds, rocky outcrops where a fallen hiker might lie hidden. The dogs picked up no scent. On July 27th, a technical team examined Wessel's iPhone after charging the battery. The device was locked, but investigators obtained access through his family. The last recorded activity was a GPS ping at 4:47 p.m. on July 16th, the day Wessel had arrived at the park. The coordinates placed him approximately 1.3 miles northeast of the Glen Aulin Trail, in an area with no official path. The location was not dangerous terrain, a forested slope with moderate grade, no cliffs or water hazards nearby, but it was clearly off his permitted route. Why Andrew Wessel had left the trail and walked into unmarked wilderness, no one could explain. His mother, Patricia Wessel, arrived at Yosemite on July 28th. She stood at the edge of the parking lot, staring at her son's car. A sheriff's deputy had to guide her away. "He always called," she told reporters 3 days later. "Every trip, every hike. He would call when he got there, call when he was leaving." He was careful. That's who he was. The official search continued until August 1st, 2018. 11 days of helicopters, dogs, ground teams, and thermal imaging. 300 square miles covered. Andrew Wessel was not found. On August 2nd, the Mariposa County Sheriff's Office classified the case as a missing person investigation. The working theory, stated in official documents, was that Wessel had become disoriented, left the trail, and succumbed to the elements in a location not yet discovered. His car was released to his family. His phone was returned. His backpack, still holding the unused sleeping bag and sealed first aid kit, was placed in evidence storage. The file remained open. Andrew Michael Wessel was born on March 3, 1989, in Fremont, California. He was the second child of Patricia and Ronald Wessel, 3 years younger than his sister Catherine. The family lived in a single-story ranch house on a quiet street lined with magnolia trees. Ronald worked as an electrician for the city of Fremont. Patricia managed the office of a pediatric dental practice. By all accounts, Andrew was a quiet child. Teachers described him as attentive but reserved. He rarely raised his hand in class, but his written work was meticulous. In 3rd grade, his teacher noted that he had rewritten a book report 3 times because he was unsatisfied with his handwriting. He wasn't obsessive, his mother later clarified in an interview. He just liked things done right. If he was going to do something, he wanted to do it properly. This tendency followed him into adulthood. Andrew graduated from American High School in Fremont in 2007. His yearbook photo shows a thin-faced young man with dark hair and a cautious half-smile. Beneath the photo, his listed ambition reads, "To see the world, one trail at a time." He enrolled at San Jose State University that fall, majoring in computer science. His academic record was solid but unremarkable, a 3.2 GPA, no disciplinary issues, no extracurricular activities listed. He lived in the dormitories for 2 years, then moved to an off-campus apartment with a roommate named Dennis Cho. Cho, reached by investigators in 2018, remembered Andrew as a reliable but distant presence. He paid his rent on time, never left dishes in the sink, Cho said. But we weren't close. He kept to himself. I think in 2 years of living together, we had maybe 3 real conversations. When asked what those conversations were about, Cho paused. Hiking, he said. He talked about trails he wanted to do. He had this notebook where he kept track of every hike, the distance, the elevation, how long it took. He showed it to me once. It was like an accountant's ledger. Andrew discovered hiking during his sophomore year. A classmate invited him on a day trip to Henry Coe State Park, and something shifted. Over the next 6 years, he completed over 200 documented hikes across California, Nevada, and Oregon. He logged each one in a series of identical black moleskin notebooks, recording the date, location, trail name, total distance, elevation gain, weather conditions, and any notable observations. The notebooks were recovered from his apartment after his disappearance. Investigators counted 14 volumes, spanning from September 2009 to July 2018. The final entry, dated July 14, 2018, detailed a training hike at Rancho San Antonio Open Space Preserve. Andrew had walked 8.4 miles in preparation for his Yosemite trip. Under notes, he had written, "Legs good, boots broken in, ready for Glen Aulin." His preparation for the Yosemite trip was extensive. 3 weeks before departure, he had downloaded topographic maps of the Tuolumne Meadows region to his phone. He had researched water sources along the Glen Aulin Trail and identified backup campsites in case his primary location was full. He had checked weather forecasts for the week, noting a predicted high of 78 degrees with no chance of precipitation. He had also filed a detailed itinerary with the Park Service, including his planned route, expected return time, and emergency contact information. "That's who Andrew was," his sister Catherine said in a statement released through the family's attorney. "He didn't take risks. He didn't improvise. Every step was planned." After graduating from San Jose State in 2012, Andrew took a job as a junior software engineer at a mid-sized tech company in Santa Clara. His supervisor, a man named Garrett Hollis, described him as competent and punctual. "He wasn't going to be a team leader," Hollis said. "He wasn't that kind of personality. But you could give him a task and know it would get done. No drama, no excuses." Andrew worked at the company for 6 years. He was promoted once to Software Engineer 2 in 2015. His salary at the time of his disappearance was $94,000 annually. He lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment in San Jose, drove a 2015 Honda Civic, and had no significant debt. He was not married. According to his family, he had dated sporadically in college but had no serious relationships as an adult. His social life, such as it was, consisted of occasional dinners with his parents in Fremont and monthly phone calls with his sister, who had moved to Portland in 2014. "We weren't super close," Catherine admitted, "but he was my brother. We talked. He seemed fine, normal, a little lonely, maybe. But who isn't?" When asked if Andrew had ever expressed dissatisfaction with his life, she hesitated. "He mentioned once that he felt like he was just going through the motions," she said. "Work, home, hiking, repeat. He said he wanted something to change, but he didn't know what." The conversation had taken place in April 2018, 3 months before his disappearance. Investigators reviewed Andrew's digital footprint extensively. His email showed routine correspondence work messages, online orders, occasional exchanges with hiking forums. His browser history revealed searches for trail conditions in Yosemite, weather forecasts, and camping gear reviews. Nothing unusual. His social media presence was minimal. A Facebook account, rarely updated, showed his last post in 2016, a photo of a sunset from the summit of Mount Diablo. An Instagram account, private, contained 47 images, all of landscapes. No selfies, no photos with friends or family. His phone records showed regular calls to his mother, typically on Sunday evenings. The last call before his Yosemite trip occurred on July 15, 2018, at 7:23 p.m. It lasted 11 minutes. Patricia Wessel later recounted the conversation. "He told me about his route," she said. "He said the weather looked perfect. He said he'd call me Tuesday night after he got back. He said, 'Don't worry, Mom, it's an easy trail.'" She never heard from him again. Colleagues at his workplace noticed nothing unusual in the days before his departure. Andrew had requested 2 days of vacation time, approved without issue. He had completed his assigned tasks ahead of schedule, as was his habit. On the afternoon of July 15th, he had told a coworker he was looking forward to getting out of the city for a while. The coworker, a woman named Linda Tran, was the last person from Andrew's daily life to speak with him. "He seemed normal," she said, "maybe a little tired." We all were. It had been a busy quarter, but nothing that would make you think something was wrong. On the morning of July 16, 2018, Andrew Wessel loaded his Honda Civic with camping gear and drove northeast toward Yosemite National Park. The drive from San Jose to Tuolumne Meadows takes approximately 4 hours via Highway 120. He stopped once at a gas station in Oakdale, where security footage captured him filling his tank at 10:47 a.m. He arrived at Tuolumne Meadows sometime in the early afternoon. A cashier at the park store remembered selling him a sandwich at approximately 2:30 p.m. His wilderness permit was time-stamped 3:15 p.m. At 4:47 p.m., his phone registered its final GPS coordinate, 1.3 miles off the trail, in a direction he had no documented reason to go. After that, nothing. The man who planned everything had walked into the wilderness and vanished. The search for Andrew Wessel began in earnest on July 22, 2018, and would continue for 11 days. It became one of the most extensive missing person operations in Yosemite National Park that year, involving over 150 personnel from multiple agencies. Day 1 focused on the obvious. Rangers walked the Glen Aulin Trail from end to end, checking every turnoff, every vista point, every location where a hiker might stop to rest. They called Andrew's name at intervals. They checked the waterfall, where tourists sometimes slip on wet rocks. They found nothing. Day 2 brought the helicopters. It was soon. A Bell 407 from the California Highway Patrol flew grid patterns over the backcountry east of Tuolumne Meadows, using forward-looking infrared to detect heat signatures. The technology can locate a living person or a recently deceased body from thousands of feet in the air. The pilots covered 40 square miles in 6 hours. No heat signatures consistent with a human being were detected. On day 3, search coordinators made a decision that would shape the rest of the operation. Based on the GPS data from Andrew's phone, they shifted the primary search zone away from the Glen Aulin Trail and toward the unmarked wilderness to the northeast. The last recorded coordinate placed Andrew at 37.8 Alman 119.3142 de Jabal WA. Location in dense lodgepole pine forest, approximately 9,400 feet in elevation. The terrain was not technical. No cliffs, no river crossings, no obvious hazards. A reasonably fit hiker could walk out in any direction and reach a trail within 2 to 3 hours. This made his disappearance more puzzling, not less. If he'd fallen into a ravine or been caught in a rock slide, we'd understand, said Marcus Webb, the lead search coordinator, in a later interview. But this location, there's nothing there. It's just forest. Flat, open forest. You'd have to try to get lost. Ground teams entered the area on day 3. 12 searchers walked in a line formation, spaced 20 feet apart, moving slowly through the trees. They covered 2 square miles before nightfall. They found a faded beer can, a spent rifle cartridge from a hunter, and the skeletal remains of a deer. No sign of Andrew Wessel. Day 4 introduced the dogs. 2 canine units from the Mariposa County Search and Rescue Team arrived at dawn. The handlers had obtained a scent article from Andrew's apartment, an unwashed T-shirt his mother had provided. The dogs, a German shepherd named Coda and a Belgian Malinois named Riggs, were trained to track human scent across wilderness terrain. The handlers started at the GPS coordinate. Both dogs showed initial interest, circling the area, noses to the ground. Coda moved northeast for approximately 200 yards, then stopped. Riggs pulled southwest, toward a dry creek bed, but lost the trail after 150 yards. The scent was there, handler Diana Reeves reported, but it was dispersed, like he'd walked in multiple directions, or the wind had scattered it. The dogs couldn't commit to a track. This was unusual. In most missing hiker cases, the dogs could follow a scent trail for miles, even days after the person had passed. The dispersed pattern suggested either that Andrew had wandered erratically through the area or that something had interfered with the scent. Reeves offered no explanation. Neither did anyone else. Days 5 and 6 expanded the search perimeter to include areas Andrew could theoretically have reached if he had walked continuously since his disappearance. At a pace of 2 miles per hour slow, accounting for rough terrain, he could have covered over 100 miles in any direction. Search teams checked trailheads, campgrounds, and access roads throughout the northern section of the park. Rangers distributed flyers at visitor centers. Andrew's photo appeared on bulletin boards at the Tuolumne Meadows store, the Yosemite Valley Lodge, and a dozen other locations. The image showed a thin-faced man with dark hair and glasses, unsmiling, standing in front of a trail sign somewhere in the Sierra Nevada. No one reported seeing him. On day 7, investigators interviewed hikers who had been in the Tuolumne Meadows area on July 16th and 17. The Park Service provided a list of permit holders, and rangers contacted each one by phone. A couple from Sacramento, Brian and Michelle Forsyth, reported a possible sighting. On the afternoon of July 16th, they had been hiking near the Cathedral Lakes Trail, approximately 3 miles south of the Glen Aulin trailhead. At around 5 o'clock p.m., they had passed a man walking alone in the opposite direction. He was moving fast, Brian Forsyth recalled. Not running, but like he had somewhere to be. We said hello, but he didn't respond, just kept walking. When shown Andrew's photograph, both Forsyths expressed uncertainty. The man they had seen was approximately the right age and build, but they had only glimpsed his face briefly. It could have been him, Michelle said, but I couldn't swear to it. The sighting, if accurate, placed Andrew moving south away from both his planned route and his last known GPS location. It contradicted the other evidence. Search coordinators logged the report, but did not shift resources based on an uncertain identification. Day 8 brought no new information. Day 9 brought rain. The storm arrived unexpectedly on the evening of July 29th, dumping nearly an inch of precipitation across the high country. Search operations were suspended for 12 hours. When teams returned to the field, any remaining scent trails had been washed away. "That rain was the end of it, really," Marcus Webb said later. "Whatever track we might have picked up, whatever evidence was out there gone." Days 10 and 11 were formalities. Helicopters made final passes. Ground teams checked a handful of outlying locations. The dogs were not redeployed. Their handlers said it would be pointless after the rain. On August 1, 2018, the Yosemite National Park Search and Rescue Coordinator officially suspended active search operations. The decision was communicated to the Wessel family that evening. Patricia Wessel did not take it well. "They're giving up," she told a reporter from the Fremont Argus. "My son is out there somewhere, and they're giving up. How can they do that?" The Park Service released a statement explaining that all reasonable search protocols had been exhausted. Over 11 days, personnel had covered more than 300 square miles of wilderness. No evidence of Andrew Wessel had been found. No clothing, no equipment, no remains. "This does not mean the case is closed," the statement read. "We remain committed to locating Mr. Bissau." Wessel and will resume search activities if new information becomes available. No new information became available. In the weeks following the search suspension, investigators reviewed the evidence one final time. They examined the GPS data, hoping to extract additional information from Andrew's phone. The device had recorded only a single coordinate after his arrival at the park, the 4:47 p.m. ping that placed him off-trail. There were no subsequent pings, no additional data points, no clues to his direction of travel. Technical analysts noted one anomaly. The phone's battery had been at 83% when the last coordinate was recorded. For the device to have died completely by the time it was found in Andrew's car 6 days later, it would have needed to remain powered on, searching for signal for an extended period. This suggested that Andrew had not turned off his phone before venturing into the wilderness. It had simply run out of power. Why he had left it in the car, along with his wallet and half his camping gear, remained unexplained. The final search report, filed on August 15, 2018, offered a cautious conclusion. Andrew Wessel had likely become disoriented after leaving the established trail for unknown reasons. He had possibly suffered a medical emergency, a fall, a cardiac event, a sudden illness that rendered him unable to return to civilization. His remains were presumably located somewhere in the vast wilderness east of Tuolumne Meadows, in terrain too rugged or remote to be discovered by searchers. The report acknowledged the irregularities, the abandoned gear, the off-trail GPS coordinate, the dispersed scent pattern, the uncertain sighting near Cathedral Lakes. These elements, the report stated, remain without satisfactory explanation. The case was transferred to the Mariposa County Sheriff's Office as an ongoing missing person investigation. Andrew Wessel's file was added to California's database of the missing. His family went home to wait. The first year was the hardest. Patricia Wessel stopped sleeping through the night. She would wake at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., sometimes earlier, and lie in the darkness listening to her own breathing. Her husband Ronald found her one morning in October 2018, sitting at the kitchen table with Andrew's hiking notebooks spread before her. She had been reading them for hours, tracing her finger over his handwriting. "I keep thinking I'll find something," she told him. "Some clue. Something we missed." There was nothing to find. Andrew's notebooks recorded trails and distances, elevations and weather conditions. They did not explain why he had walked off the path at Tuolumne Meadows and disappeared. The Wessels hired a private investigator in September 2018. His name was Carl Drummond, a former San Jose police detective who specialized in missing persons cases. His fee was $150 per hour plus expenses. Over the next 4 months, he billed the family nearly $18,000. Drummond retraced Andrew's final days. He interviewed co-workers, neighbors, the cashier at the Oakdale gas station. He obtained copies of Andrew's phone records, bank statements, and email archives. He drove to Yosemite and walked the Glen Aulin Trail himself, taking photographs, making notes. His final report, delivered in January 2019, offered no new leads. Subject exhibited no signs of distress, financial problems, or interpersonal conflict in the weeks before his disappearance, Drummond wrote. No evidence of foul play has been identified. No evidence suggests subject intended to harm himself or voluntarily abandon his life. The most probable explanation remains accidental death in the wilderness, with remains not yet recovered. Patricia Wessel refused to accept this conclusion. "He's not dead," she told her daughter Catherine during a phone call in February 2019. "I would know. A mother would know." Catherine, who had taken a week off work to help with the initial search and had returned to her life in Portland, did not argue. She had learned not to. The second year brought legal complications. Ronald Wessel, who had taken early retirement from his electrician's job in late 2018, began to experience health problems. His doctor diagnosed high blood pressure and early-stage kidney disease. The medical bills accumulated. The family's savings, already depleted by the private investigator, dwindled further. In April 2020, Ronald's brother suggested they petition the court to declare Andrew legally dead. California law allows such a declaration after a person has been missing for 5 years or sooner, if there is evidence suggesting death is likely. The abandoned car, the failed search, the wilderness setting. All of it pointed toward the conclusion that Andrew had not survived. A death certificate would allow the Wessels to collect on Andrew's life insurance policy. It would also provide closure of a sort, a formal end to the waiting. Patricia refused. "You're asking me to bury my son without a body," she said. "I won't do it. Not until I know." Ronald did not press the issue. The family continued to wait. The Wessels maintained Andrew's apartment for 14 months after his disappearance, paying rent on the one-bedroom unit in San Jose in case he returned. In September 2019, they finally let it go. Catherine flew down from Portland to help pack up her brother's belongings. The process took 3 days. Andrew had not accumulated much in his 29 years: a bed, a desk, a couch that had come with the apartment. Boxes of books, mostly technical manuals and hiking guides. His hiking gear, what remained of it. His moleskin notebooks. Catherine found a box of photographs in the closet. Baby pictures, school portraits, a few images from family vacations. There was a photograph of Andrew at age 12, standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon, squinting into the sun. He looked happy. She also found a journal. It was different from the hiking notebooks, a spiral-bound composition book with a black cover, the kind sold at drugstores. The entries were sporadic, sometimes months apart, written in Andrew's neat, careful handwriting. Most of the content was mundane: notes about work projects, observations about the weather, complaints about a neighbor who played music too loud. But scattered throughout were passages that gave Catherine pause. An entry from March 2017. Sometimes I feel like I'm watching my life from outside. Like I'm not really here. Like I'm waiting for something to happen. But I don't know what. An entry from November 2017. Went to Pinnacles today, alone as usual. I wonder what it would be like to just keep walking. Not stop at the trailhead. Not go back to the car. Just keep going until I couldn't go anymore. An entry from May 2018, 2 months before his disappearance. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I go to work. I come home. I hike on weekends. Is this it? Is this all there is? Catherine showed the journal to the private investigator, who had remained in occasional contact with the family. Drummond reviewed the passages and added a supplemental note to his file. Subject's writings suggest possible depressive ideation, he wrote. However, there is no explicit mention of self-harm or suicidal intent. Writings may indicate existential dissatisfaction, common among young adults. Significance to disappearance unclear. Patricia Wessel read the journal once. She did not read it again. By 2020, the family had exhausted most avenues of investigation. The Mariposa County Sheriff's Office provided occasional updates, always the same message, delivered with professional sympathy. No new information, no new leads. The case remained open but inactive. Patricia maintained a Facebook page dedicated to Andrew's case. Find Andrew Wessel, it was called. She posted updates whenever she could, though the updates grew less frequent as time passed. The page accumulated 847 followers, mostly strangers with an interest in missing persons cases, a few friends and family members. Comments appeared sporadically: offers of prayer, expressions of hope, occasional claims from psychics who said they could sense Andrew's location. Patricia responded to every message. None of the leads proved useful. In August 2020, exactly 2 years after the search was suspended, Ronald Wessel gave an interview to the Fremont Argus. The reporter, a young woman named Stephanie Cho, was working on a piece about families of the missing. She spent 2 hours at the Wessel home, taking notes, recording audio. The resulting article ran on the paper's front page, below the fold. It included a photograph of Ronald and Patricia sitting on their living room couch, Andrew's framed hiking photos visible on the wall behind them. "We're in limbo," Ronald told the reporter. "Not knowing is the worst part. If they found his body, at least we'd know. At least we could grieve. But this, it's like he just evaporated. People don't just evaporate." The article generated a brief surge of interest in Andrew's case. The Facebook page gained 200 new followers in a week. A true crime podcast reached out, asking if the Wessels would consent to an interview. Patricia agreed. The podcast episode aired in October 2020. It was 43 minutes long and covered the basic facts of the case: the planned hike, the abandoned car, the failed search. The host speculated about various possibilities: accident, foul play, voluntary disappearance. He did not reach any conclusions. The episode was downloaded approximately 12,000 times. It generated no new leads. Life continued. Ronald's health stabilized with medication. Catherine got engaged to a software developer named Marcus Chen. The wedding was scheduled for June 2021, then postponed due to the pandemic, then rescheduled for September 2021. Patricia attended the ceremony in Portland, smiling in photographs, saying the right things. She returned to Fremont the next day. She did not stop waiting. The third year passed. The fourth year began. By early 2022, Andrew Wessel had been missing for nearly 4 years. His case had faded from public attention. The Facebook page received only occasional comments. The podcast host had moved on to other stories. The Mariposa County Sheriff's Office sent a form letter every 6 months, confirming that the case remained open. Patricia still kept Andrew's hiking boots in the hall closet. She had not moved them since Catherine brought them back from his apartment in 2019. "He'll need them when he comes home," she told her husband. Ronald said nothing. Then, in March 2022, the phone rang. The call came from a social worker in Reno, Nevada. Her name was Ellen Marsh, and she worked for the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health. She had been reviewing files at a state-run psychiatric facility when she noticed something that made her pause. A patient had been admitted to the facility in December 2019 under the name John Carter. He had no identification, no known address, no emergency contacts. He had been found wandering near a truck stop outside Sparks, Nevada, disoriented and unresponsive to questions. Local police had transported him to the hospital, where he was placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. When the hold expired and no one came to claim him, he was transferred to the state facility. He had been there ever since. The patient called himself John Carter, but staff suspected the name was fabricated. He could not provide a social security number, a birth date, or any verifiable details about his past. When asked where he was from, he gave inconsistent answers, sometimes California, sometimes Oregon, sometimes he simply said he didn't know. For over 2 years, he existed in the system as an unidentified person. Nevada, like most states, maintains a protocol for such cases. Staff photograph the patient, take fingerprints if possible, and submit the information to national databases. But the system is imperfect. Databases don't always communicate. Matches slip through the cracks. Ellen Marsh had been assigned to audit unidentified patient files as part of a new state initiative. On March 7, 2022, she was reviewing John Carter's case when she decided to run his photograph through NAMUS, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, maintained by the Department of Justice. The system returned a potential match. Andrew Michael Wessel, missing from Yosemite National Park since July 2018. Last seen at age 29. Brown hair, brown eyes, 5'10", 165 pounds. A photograph showed a thin-faced man with glasses standing in front of a trail sign. Marsh looked at the photograph. She looked at John Carter's intake photo from December 2019. The resemblance was striking. She contacted the Mariposa County Sheriff's Office that afternoon. A deputy named Robert Fenton took the call. He had never heard of Andrew Wessel. The case predated his tenure, but he pulled the file and reviewed the details. By the end of the day, he had requested fingerprint records from the Reno facility. The prints arrived 3 days later. Fenton submitted them for comparison against Andrew Wessel's records, obtained from his California driver's license application. The results came back on March 14, 2022. 10-point match. Positive identification. John Carter was Andrew Wessel. Patricia Wessel received the call at 4:47 p.m., the same time, to the minute, that her son's phone had recorded its final GPS coordinate nearly 4 years earlier. She would later describe this as a coincidence. She did not believe in signs. The deputy's words came through the phone in fragments. Found, alive, Nevada. Psychiatric facility. She asked him to repeat himself, He did. She asked again. Ronald drove her to Reno the next morning. The trip took 4.5 hours. Neither of them spoke much. Patricia held her phone in her lap, staring at the screen, as if expecting another call that would tell her it had all been a mistake. The facility was a low, beige building on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by a chain-link fence. A security guard checked their identification at the gate. A nurse led them through a series of locked doors to a conference room where they were asked to wait. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, the facility's chief psychiatrist, entered 20 minutes later. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and a calm, measured voice. He explained the situation in clinical terms. The patient had been admitted on December 3, 2019, in a state of acute dissociation. He was nonverbal for the first 72 hours, then began speaking in fragmented sentences. He identified himself as John Carter, but could provide no biographical details. He did not appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. A CT scan revealed no evidence of traumatic brain injury. Over the following months, the patient stabilized. He became cooperative, even pleasant. He participated in group therapy sessions and took his medications without resistance, but his memory remained impaired. He could not recall where he had come from, what he had done before arriving in Nevada, or how he had ended up at the truck stop where police found him. "He's been with us for over 2 years," Dr. Okonkwo said. "In that time, he's made significant progress in terms of daily functioning, but the amnesia persists. He genuinely does not remember his past." Patricia leaned forward. "Can we see him?" The doctor hesitated. "I should prepare you," he said. "He may not recognize you. This isn't a choice on his part. It's a symptom of his condition. Please try not to take it personally." They were led to a common room with large windows overlooking a courtyard. Several patients sat at tables playing cards or watching a television mounted on the wall. A man in a gray sweatshirt sat alone near the window, looking out at the empty courtyard. Patricia recognized him immediately. He was thinner than she remembered, and his hair had grown longer. He wasn't wearing glasses, but it was Andrew, her son, alive. She crossed the room before the staff could stop her. She said his name. He turned. His face showed no recognition. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice was quiet, polite, utterly unfamiliar in its flatness. "Do I know you?" Patricia began to cry. The reunion, such as it was, lasted 45 minutes. Dr. Okonkwo sat nearby, observing. Patricia showed Andrew photographs on her phone, his childhood home, his sister's wedding, his own face in a college graduation portrait. He studied each image with detached curiosity, as if examining artifacts from someone else's life. "That's me?" he asked, pointing to the graduation photo. "Yes," Patricia said. "That's you. Andrew. Andrew Michael Wessel. That's your name." He repeated it slowly. Andrew Michael Wessel. The words seemed to carry no weight. Over the following weeks, investigators attempted to reconstruct Andrew's movements during the 4 years he had been missing. The task proved nearly impossible. The timeline contained a gap that could not be explained. Andrew, or John Carter, as he had been known, was admitted to the Nevada facility on December 3, 2019. That was 17 months after his disappearance from Yosemite in July 2018. Where had he been during those 17 months? How had he traveled from a remote wilderness area in California to a truck stop outside Reno? Who, if anyone, had helped him? Andrew could not answer these questions. He had no memory of the period between his arrival at Yosemite and his emergence in Nevada. Investigators checked homeless shelters, hospitals, and jails across California and Nevada. They found no record of anyone matching Andrew's description. They canvassed the area around the Sparks truck stop, interviewing employees and regular customers. No one remembered seeing him before the night police picked him up. The truck stop's security cameras had recorded his arrival. Footage from December 2, 2019, showed a man walking across the parking lot at 11:23 p.m. He was wearing jeans, a dark jacket, and hiking boots, the same boots Andrew had owned before his disappearance. He carried no bag, no wallet, no identification. He walked to the edge of the lot and stood there for several minutes, staring at the highway. Then he sat down on a concrete barrier and did not move. A trucker noticed him at 2:15 a.m. and called the police. Where Andrew had been in the hours or days or months before that moment, no one could determine. Dr. Okonkwo's diagnosis was dissociative fugue, a rare condition in which a person loses access to their autobiographical memory and may travel unexpectedly, sometimes assuming a new identity. The condition is typically triggered by severe psychological trauma or stress. It can last hours, days, or in rare cases, years. The mind, under extreme duress, sometimes chooses to forget, the doctor explained to the Wessel family. It's a protective mechanism. The memories aren't necessarily gone, they're buried. Whether they'll resurface and when is impossible to predict. Patricia asked if Andrew would ever remember what happened to him. Dr. Okonkwo could not say. The discharge process took 3 weeks. Andrew, he was learning to respond to that name again, was evaluated by multiple specialists. His condition was deemed stable, though fragile. He was prescribed medication for anxiety and depression. A follow-up care plan was established with a psychiatrist in Fremont. On April 8, 2022, Patricia and Ronald Wessel brought their son home. He walked through the front door of the house where he had grown up and looked around as if seeing it for the first time. "This is where I lived?" he asked. Patricia nodded. She could not speak. Andrew walked to the hall closet and opened it. His hiking boots sat on the floor, exactly where she had left them 3 years earlier. He stared at them for a long time. "I don't remember," he said finally. "I'm sorry. I don't remember any of it." The Mariposa County Sheriff's Office officially closed the missing persons case on April 22, 2022. The subject had been located. He was alive. From an administrative standpoint, the matter was resolved. But the questions remained. Detective Robert Fenton, who had handled the identification process, compiled a final summary of the case. The document ran to 14 pages and concluded with a section titled Unresolved Elements. The list was extensive. How had Andrew Wessel traveled from a remote location in Yosemite National Park to a truck stop in Sparks, Nevada, a distance of approximately 80 miles, without being seen, recorded, or reported by anyone? Where had he spent the 17 months between his disappearance in July 2018 and his emergence in December 2019? Why had he left the established trail on July 16, 2018, abandoning his planned route and walking into unmarked wilderness? What had triggered the psychological break that erased his memory? The detective's report offered no answers to these questions. It noted only that the subject is unable to provide testimony regarding his movements or experiences during the period in question. Andrew Wessel himself remained the only witness to his own disappearance, and he remembered nothing. In the months following his return, Andrew underwent extensive psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Rebecca Torres, a specialist in dissociative disorders at Stanford Medical Center, conducted a series of interviews and assessments. Her findings, shared with the family in June 2022, painted a portrait of a mind that had sealed itself off from its own past. Andrew presents with dense retrograde amnesia affecting autobiographical memory, Dr. Torres wrote. He retains semantic knowledge facts, skills, general information about the world, but cannot access personal memories prior to December 2019. He knows what hiking is, but cannot remember hiking. He recognizes California on a map, but cannot recall living there. The amnesia was not absolute. Fragments surfaced occasionally, unbidden and disconnected from context. During one session, Andrew suddenly described a smell pine trees and dust, sharp and specific. He said the smell made him feel afraid, though he could not explain why. When Dr. Torres asked him to elaborate, he shook his head. "It's like looking at a photograph through frosted glass," he said. "I can see shapes, but I can't make out what they are." In another session, he mentioned water. Cold water, moving fast. He thought he might have crossed a river at some point, but he couldn't say where or when. The memory, if it was a memory, lasted only a few seconds before dissolving. These fragments offered no coherent narrative. They were pieces of a puzzle with no edge pieces, no reference image. Dr. Torres attempted several techniques to unlock Andrew's buried memories. Hypnotherapy produced nothing useful. Andrew entered a relaxed state but could not access the blocked period. Guided imagery exercises triggered anxiety without yielding specific recollections. EMDR eye movement. Desensitization and reprocessing was discontinued after Andrew experienced a panic attack during a session. "His mind has constructed a wall," Dr. Torres explained to Patricia Wessel. "And the wall serves a purpose. It's protecting him from something. Until he's ready to face whatever that something is, the wall will remain." Patricia asked what could have been so terrible that Andrew's mind had chosen to erase nearly 4 years of his life. Dr. Torres did not speculate. Investigators pursued external leads, hoping to fill in the gaps that Andrew could not. They submitted his photograph to law enforcement agencies across the western United States, asking if anyone had encountered him between July 2018 and December 2019. They checked arrest records, hospital admissions, shelter logs. A few possible sightings emerged, none confirmed. A homeless outreach worker in Sacramento thought she recognized Andrew from a photograph. She believed she had seen a man matching his description sleeping in a park near the American River Parkway in the summer of 2019. She had offered him food. He had declined without speaking. She could not be certain it was the same person. A motel clerk in Bishop, California, reported that a man resembling Andrew had checked in for one night in October 2018, paying cash and providing no identification. The name in the register was John Smith. Security footage from that period had been overwritten. A hiker in the Inyo National Forest claimed to have passed a man fitting Andrew's description on a remote trail in August 2019. The man had been walking alone, carrying no pack, wearing clothes that seemed too light for the conditions. The hiker had said hello. The man had not responded. None of these sightings could be verified. None led anywhere. The most puzzling element remained the timeline. Andrew disappeared on July 16, 2018. He appeared at the truck stop on December 2, 2019. That was 504 days, nearly a year and a half. but the medical records from his admission to the Nevada psychiatric facility contained an anomaly. The intake examination, conducted on December 3, 2019, noted that Andrew was in relatively good physical condition. He was underweight, but not severely malnourished. His feet showed no signs of prolonged walking or exposure. His clothing, though worn, was not consistent with extended homelessness. Patient appears to have been living in stable conditions prior to presentation, the examining physician wrote. Physical findings inconsistent with extended outdoor survival or vagrancy. This suggested that Andrew had not spent the entire 17 months wandering in the wilderness or living on the streets. Someone, somewhere, had provided him with shelter, food, and basic care. Who that someone was, Andrew could not say. Detective Fenton noted another discrepancy. The hiking boots Andrew was wearing when police found him at the truck stop were identified as the same pair he had owned before his disappearance, the REI boots purchased in April 2018. Catherine Wessel confirmed this by matching a distinctive scuff mark visible in photographs. But the boots showed surprisingly little wear for footwear that had supposedly been used for 17 months of wandering. The soles were worn but not destroyed. The leather was scuffed but intact. Those boots should have been falling apart, Fenton observed. Either he wasn't wearing them the whole time or he wasn't walking as much as we assumed. The implication was unsettling. If Andrew had not walked out of Yosemite, how had he left? Had someone driven him? Had he hitchhiked? Had he been taken against his will? Andrew could not answer. He did not remember. In August 2022, 4 months after his return, Andrew sat for an interview with the Fremont Argus, the same newspaper that had covered his case in 2020. The reporter, Stephanie Cho, approached him gently, aware of his condition. The resulting article offered readers their first glimpse of the man who had returned from nowhere. I look at photographs of my life, and it's like looking at someone else, Andrew told her. My mother shows me pictures from my childhood, and I believe her when she says it's me. But I don't feel it. There's no connection. When asked about the period of his disappearance, Andrew shook his head. There's nothing there, he said. It's not like forgetting where you put your keys. It's not like something's on the tip of your tongue. It's just blank. Like those years didn't happen. Cho asked if he wanted to remember. Andrew was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he said finally. Part of me wants to know what happened, but another part, he paused. Another part thinks maybe I forgot for a reason. Maybe some things are better left buried. The interview drew significant attention. The podcast that had covered Andrew's case in 2020 released a follow-up episode. Several true crime blogs wrote about the resolution, if it could be called that. For a few weeks, Andrew Wessel's name circulated through the strange ecosystem of people fascinated by the unexplained. Then the attention faded, as it always does. Andrew continued his recovery, such as it was. He moved into a small apartment in Fremont, a few miles from his parents' house. He could not return to his job in software engineering. His technical skills remained intact, but the company had filled his position years earlier, and he had no desire to re-enter the corporate world. He took a part-time job at a local bookstore, shelving volumes and operating the register. The work was simple, repetitive, undemanding. He seemed to find it calming. He did not hike. His mother asked him once if he wanted to visit Yosemite, to see the place where his old life had ended and his strange absence had begun. She thought it might help trigger something, shake loose a memory. Andrew refused. "I don't want to go back there," he said. "I can't explain why. I just know I don't want to." Patricia did not press him. The family settled into a new equilibrium. Ronald's health remained stable. Catherine visited from Portland every few months, bringing her husband and eventually her newborn daughter. Andrew held his niece awkwardly, unsure of the proper way to support an infant's head. "She's beautiful," he said. He sounded like he meant it. Patricia watched her son navigate his diminished life and tried to find peace. He was alive. He was safe. He was here, in the world, breathing and speaking and existing. So many families of the missing never received even that much. But late at night, when the house was quiet and Ronald was asleep, she sometimes sat in the kitchen and thought about the gap. The 17 months, the 504 days her son had spent somewhere, doing something, being someone she would never know. She wondered if he had been happy during that time. She wondered if he had been afraid. She wondered if he had thought of her, of his family, of the life he had left behind. She wondered if he would ever remember. The official file on Andrew Wessel's disappearance was closed. The questions it contained would likely never be answered. The gap in his history would remain a gap, a blank space on the map of his life, marked only by the absence of information. In his apartment, Andrew kept a single photograph on his bedside table. It showed a mountain trail at sunset, the kind of image that might appear on a postcard or a calendar. He had found it in a magazine and cut it out, drawn to something in the composition. He did not know why he liked it. He did not know what it meant. He only knew that when he looked at it, he felt something stir in the sealed chambers of his mind. A flicker, a shadow, a whisper of recognition. It was not a memory, but it was not nothing.